Welcome to Camp Heirloom Radio, a traveling podcast inside an old bus. I'm Tanya, and at each stop, we sit down with the people and small businesses behind the Heirloom Market. Come for camp, stay for the stories. Welcome. You're tuning in to our new podcast, Camp Heirloom Radio. We're currently hunkered down in a traveling bus in the middle of a rainstorm. If you don't know who I am, my name is Tanya. I'm the camp director of Camp Heirloom, an annual shopping event I started in 2016 out of my love for all things vintage and handmade. Over the last decade, through the market, I've had the privilege of meeting hundreds of makers, collectors, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and community makers. And after every conversation, I'd often find myself thinking, more people need to hear this story. That's exactly my goal with this podcast. Prior to starting the Heirloom Market, I was buying and selling vintage and antiques, sprinkled in with a few handmade goods through an antique mall, and at other events I traveled to in eastern Nebraska and even into Colorado. And it was at that point that I realized there really wasn't anything like that being offered here in western Nebraska. My business partner and I at the time decided to host our own event and invited a few of our friends and people we'd met along the way who offered similar goods. With no formal education or event planning experience before, to be fair, I have planned several of my own kids' birthday parties, which were all pretty elaborate, so there were signs. As excited as we were for that first event, we'd never imagined it taking off as much as it did. I remember the first market like it was yesterday, much like the storm we're in now. We were running around on pure adrenaline. I think I tracked over 30,000 steps on my Fitbit that day and didn't even get a chance to work on my own booth until around midnight. And that was mostly because I was forced into the barn when the storm hit and had to take shelter. So this is a real full circle moment right here. But for the rest of the night, I remember sleeping in the fetal position, zero sleep, completely anxious about what to expect the following day. But the sun came out, the people showed up, and from then on, I knew this thing was going to be something special. I still get that knot in my stomach and little to no sleep before the market, but since then, there have been many changes over the last 10 years. From where we started on a farm to the side streets of a small town to a venue large enough to keep expanding our growing market and its needs. Many of the vendors and shoppers have been with us through it all. Today, it's not just me carrying the load. I have a team of women behind the scenes, planning, organizing, visual displays, social media, graphics and design, and so much more. And I am so grateful to have them by my side. I can't wait to share more of their stories along the way and give you a deep dive into each of their roles in the market and the work they are doing within their own businesses. We've also slowly started rebranding as Camp Heirloom. This started after our recent move to Five Rocks Amphitheater in Geary, Nebraska. Something about the smell of the pine trees and the structures all just screamed camp to me. And since then, we've gone all in on this theme, which continues to feel more and more aligned with the vision I have for it today. Because to me, it's more than just the visuals. To me, camp represents community, adventure, and belonging. And traditionally, an heirloom is something passed down from one generation to the next. But I believe heirlooms are more than just objects. They can be traditions, recipes, skills, stories, or memories. When you put the two words together, Camp Heirloom becomes a place where memories are made and stories are preserved. It's where the past and the present meet. In a world that's constantly asking us to move faster, buy newer, and scroll further, nostalgia invites us to slow down, appreciate the old and forgotten, and to be fully present. And that's exactly what I hope to bring, not just to the market itself, but also with this new podcast. Now, if you've been with us for a while, you might remember way back when we ran a social media series called Meet the Maker. This gave us the chance to highlight our vendors and allowed each to share a glimpse of who they were, what they offered, and how their businesses came to be. It was so fun, and I loved reading their stories and feeling even more connected to the person behind the booth. It was a chance for shoppers to see that these are real people, which have always been an important part of supporting small businesses for me and something I think many are craving more of. But fast forward to today, and with over 100 vendors, sadly, it's just not something we have the capacity to feature anymore. Then came the shift for me. Around 2021, 2022, I found myself unwilling to be as vulnerable as I once tried to be. Not sure if you ever really get comfortable, but I started to pull back and didn't want to put myself out there as much on social media platforms. This business has definitely forced me to have thicker skin, but I have always prided myself on being raw and real about my business and what it's taken to get here. As a natural people pleaser, that can be tough when complete strangers on the internet hold negative opinions. So I started sharing less about myself and my own journey, and without the ability to give more insight about the heartbeat of our market, which is to me the vendors, I can truly say that between those two things, the community piece has been lacking outside of the market itself. Now, the word community has become something of a buzzword, and in my opinion, it's lost some of its true meaning because it's just so casually tossed around. But what we have built among the vendors and the shoppers is a true community. I wanted a way to experience that again, but on a deeper level. So here we are, inside my old bus as a traveling podcast. At times, we'll even fire her up and take her on the road for a special peek inside the businesses and places we feature. Honestly, if you had asked me a year or even 6 months ago if I'd considered starting a podcast, I probably would have laughed in your face. But shout out to my friend Taylor, who planted the seed and told me I should consider starting one. At that moment, I was in a season of transition in both my personal and professional life, and something just clicked. It immediately felt like the missing piece between where the market is today and where it first began. So whether you're a shopper and want to know more about the vendors behind the booth and their backstory, or you're considering starting a business of your own and are inspired to hear more, or maybe you have a business and you're looking to gain some helpful tips on how to grow your business along the way. Regardless of why you're here, I hope you enjoy each episode and feel like you're right beside us, gathered around the campfire, sharing the stories with the people that make up Camp Heirloom. Until next time, thanks for joining me. This has been Camp Heirloom Radio. If you enjoyed this episode, follow along on our socials or visit theheirloommarket.co to see where we're headed next. Thanks for coming along for the ride.